Hi everybody, today's topic is Introduction to Slope-Intercept. As an example, you do not need to write down everything we cover in this video, but be sure to jot down important information and at least one example of each type of problem that we cover. Also remember that you can pause the video to jot down important notes, rewind to view information again, and fast forward if you think you got it. Just be careful and make sure that you don't fast forward too much that you miss out on anything important. Let's begin. Every linear graph, so meaning a line that is completely straight as your graph, can be represented by an equation in the form of y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b is called the slope-intercept form. That is very important, so you want to make sure that you jot that into your notes. So if you need to, pause the video and jot this down. Y equals mx plus b basically has four parts, and this graphic here explains those four parts. You have a y and an x, and those are basically your variables, and they're going to tell you exactly where your point is. Like in your ordered pair, you have an x point and your y point. That's what these x's and y's mean. They can be replaced by those actual points. The m you probably should recognize because we've talked about how slope is m, which stands for modulus of slope when they first developed slope. It was just a model of the steepness of a line. So y equals mx plus b, the m stands for slope. So it tells you how steep the line is. The b is a new piece of information. B stands for the y-intercept. That basically tells us where the line is going to cross over the y-axis. And every line is eventually going to cross over the y-axis. So that's the new piece of information here. So y equals mx plus b just has those four different parts. X and y are the points from an ordered pair, the x point and the y point. M is the slope, and b is where the line is going to touch or cross over the y-axis. So here's an example. This equation, y equals negative 2x plus 3, has your x and y point, and it has a slope of negative 2, and it tells us that the b is 3. So that means that this line is going to cross over the y-axis at the 3 point. So this graph shows y equals negative 2x plus 3. It touches the y-axis at 3, and then the slope is negative 2, meaning to get to the next point, we're going to go down 2, 1, 2, and over 1, and that's how we get to the next point. We always go down 2, 1, 2, and over 1 to get to the next point. Down 2 and over 1. Because that slope of negative 2 was originally negative 2 over 1. It just got simplified to negative 2. So it's not a 0 on the bottom, it's a 1. The y-intercept is always going to be written in the form 0, comma, b for the ordered pair. Why? Because that y-intercept is going to meet at two integers. The first integer is 0 from the x-axis, and the other integer, the other point, is 3. So it becomes 3 as just the number it touches on the y-axis in the equation, but the actual ordered pair for it is 0 and then 3. So that's very important, and you should jot this example down into your notes because that's going to help you with your problems later on. So make sure you pause the video and jot that down. Okay, now here's the tricky part. Sometimes an equation won't be written as y equals mx plus b form. So this equation, y equals negative 2x plus 3, can be written in many other different ways. Make sure you jot this down because sometimes problems can be written in different ways to try and trick you. For example, for y equals negative 2x plus 3, I could have the same equation but written differently. I could write that equation as y equals 3 minus 2x. And in that case, I'm just switching those places. I'm just having the positive 3 go first and the minus 2x go in the back. But these two are essentially the same equation. They're just written differently. One is written in proper y equals mx plus b form, and the other is just y equals b plus mx, which is the same thing. They're just positions are switched because with addition and subtraction, it doesn't really matter the order as long as those signs are following them. For the second example, it's the same thing as well. They just added 2x to each side. So they started off with y equals negative 2x plus 3. And then just like a normal solving of an equation, they did the same thing to both sides to keep it even. They got rid of this minus 2x by adding 2x, but they did that on both sides. So by doing that, they're keeping everything the same. On the right-hand side, it just became a 3. They brought down the equal sign. And then on the left-hand side, they have 2x plus y. So by adding 2x to each side, it just canceled it on one side and basically switched it over to the other side as the opposite sign. So 2x plus y equals 3 is the same as the original y equals 2x, negative 2x plus 3. So just be aware that sometimes equations may not be written in y equals mx plus b form, but still be the same essential equation. So make sure you write down these two examples before moving on. Now the last thing we want to cover is just special cases. Sometimes linear equations are not slanted. They are either horizontal or vertical, and these are special cases. So for horizontal lines, you're going to have the equation look like this. Y equals just a number. There's no mx part because a horizontal line, if you remember, has a slope of 0. So that mx ended up just disappearing because 0 times anything is going to disappear or become nothing. So if it is a flat road, or a horizontal line, remember if a runner is running on a flat road, the slope is 0. It's flat. There's no steepness. So the 0 times x just disappeared. So you're left with y equals no more mx, but just the b left over. So the y-intercept is left over. So it just tells you exactly where that line is going to cut through the y-axis just at that number, and it's going to be a horizontal line. We can also have vertical lines. So vertical lines is the opposite. Instead of y equaling a number, it's going to be x equaling a number. So this line is going up and down. This slope is undefined. Instead of saying slope is equal to 0, we're just saying there's no slope. This line is just going straight up and down. The steepness is ridiculous. There's no slope. It's undefined. So when x equals that number, it just tells us where that x or that line is going to cut through the x-axis. It's going to cut through the x-axis at 5. For the horizontal line, it tells us where it's going to cut through the y-axis at -2. So it kind of gives you a hint as to where it's going to go. It's going to cut through the y-axis. The y-axis goes up and down at -2. And this one is going to cut through the x-axis. X-axis goes left to right at +5. All right, let's go through some examples. So in this example, they want you to figure out the y-intercept when you are given the equation y equals -3x minus 2. Pause the video and try it on your own first. All right, so this right here is written in y equals mx plus b form. I know because I have my y's that match up. I have a number multiplied by x, and I have a b at the end. They want to know the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is the b value. So all you need to do is find the b value in your equation, as long as it's written in y equals mx plus b form. This b value is -2. Be careful, it's not a +2. It's a -2 because we're subtracting 2. And if you remember, our y-intercept is always written as 0 and then the b. So this answer is 0, -2. That's your y-intercept, 0, -2. They have answers here to trick you. If you mixed up your slope and your y-intercept, you would have chosen any of these with the -3. And then they're also trying to trick you into remembering where that 0 goes for your y-intercept. If you ever need a quick refresher, just draw any line through the y-intercept and remember that this is meeting up with 0 and then that number. So the x-axis's number has to go first, and then the y-axis's number goes second. So that number is second because it's on the y-axis at that number. So this answer is 0, -2. Let's try another one. This problem asks you to complete the equation of the line whose slope is 5 and y-intercept is 0, 4. Pause the video and try it on your own first. All right, so they have y equals blank, which tells you they want it in y equals mx plus b form. Remember, the m is the slope, and then the b is the y-intercept. So let's put all that in there. Y equals 5x, because it's the slope times x, plus the b is the 4, not the 0. So our answer here should be y equals 5x plus 4. So you're just putting it into the y equals mx plus b format there. Let's try another one. For this problem, they want you to know what is the slope of y equals -4. Pause the video and try it on your own first. Okay, two ways that you can figure this one out. First, you can try writing in y equals mx plus b form. So we know our b is -4, and then our slope disappeared, so it had to be 0 in order for it to disappear. Okay, when the slope is 0, we know it's a flat line. Okay, so there's the slope right there, 0. The other way we can figure it out is we can see that this y equals -4. So that means that it had to cut through the y-axis at -4. -1, 2, 3, 4. So if it cuts through at -4, we can also see that the slope is 0 because it's a flat line. So meaning if I took two pretty points on this line, it would have no rise. I'm not rising to get to that other point. So my rise over run would be 0 over, okay, our run is 2 here. So 0 divided by 2 is 0. So that's how we get a slope of 0. A flat line is always going to have a slope of 0. So the other way you could figure it out, like I said, was to put it in y equals mx plus b form, and you saw that it had to be 0 times x to make that disappear. So this is a slope of 0. Let's try one last problem before we end for today. All right, so this problem wants us to figure out what is the slope of y equals 4 minus 2x. Pause the video and try it on your own first. Okay, so I'm always going to go to y equals mx plus b. It's so important because it gives me so much information. So let's try and write this in y equals mx plus b form. I'm going to keep that y there. I'm going to put my times x1 next, and that has a -2 in front of it. This negative belongs to that 2, so it has to follow it. And then this 4 is a +4. So essentially they mixed it up. They switched my x and my b. So I'm switching it back. The 2 is negative, so that follows it, and the 4 has an invisible plus sign in front of it, so it's plus. So my slope here is whatever's attached to my x, and that's negative 2. Okay, so that's the slope-intercept form. It's a lot of understanding what exactly slope is and what exactly the y-intercept is. So make sure that you're looking through your notes as you're solving these problems. Let me know if you have any questions as you're working on them. And if not, I'll see you in class.